Welcome to the show today, folks. It's a little rainy out. It's a little close to nighttime. I usually film this in the morning. It's a little dark out. I got some blue-orange. It's very cinematic tonight because we're talking about a very cinematic game. No, we're talking about Final Fantasy Legend 3, the final Game Boy release in the Final Fantasy series and the end of the trilogy. This trilogy has caused me much pain in this series if you've been following along. And I gotta say,
I didn't get that.
What the
Can you try
hell?
again?
Shut up, Siri! Yeah, it's been painful. The second game was a nightmare. I almost died. But so I was not looking forward to this one, and then I played it and wow. So much has changed. This is nothing like the first two games at all. In fact, it's kind of close to Final Fantasy. I think maybe they took a few notes because, well, let's go into what's different. So first off, no more breakable weapons. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. That's nice. I love that a lot. Two, everybody starts out as a human, and the monster transformation is crazy. In the last one, you get a monster, and the monster can transform into whatever. But this one, anybody can transform into anything. There's monsters, just like the last ones, and robots, just like the last ones. There's beasts now. What are beasts? Beats me. I have no clue how they're different than monsters, but any person can eat a monster that dies after a battle, and it transforms you into a new monster. And there's like a scale, like all the way in the end, there's a robot. You can, instead of eating, they might drop robot parts, and you install the robot parts, and you could become a robot. And then you can come back, I guess. This, I mean, it's not really that confusing, but it was a really huge change that scared me immensely, because changing monsters is a huge difference. You get new stats and new abilities, and lose old stats and old abilities. That was really... I didn't want to do it, and in fact I did not. Except for one character, and we'll talk about him, we'll talk about Woosies. Everybody else I did not touch, because man, what if you just got a bad monster? You would be screwed for a while, right? But that's the thing, there's a lot of freedom in this game, and I've complained about that in the past few, ever since Final Fantasy 2. Like, you get freedom, but then you choose the wrong thing and you get screwed over. Well, in this game, I chose not to evolve my guys at all, except for one. I chose to give them specific magic. Anybody can learn magic now. And I got through this game very easily. This wasn't a problem. Like, this was an enjoyable experience. This was a fun Game Boy game. The confusing level up system where like you have to use the specific weapon to gain that stat or whatever, gone. We got levels. You just have levels in this. You just level up and you get better. When a monster levels up, they change into a different monster without eating anything. Another really kind of terrifying situation, but again, when it was only one guy, no problem. Why did I say it like that? So anybody can equip magic, anybody can equip any item too. They all have different stats, so it might be a little worse for one character and better for another, but they don't break, so you can experiment as much as you want. You have an inventory that's actually manageable. It's even bigger than it was in the second one. Oh my god, and you can stack items. They're like, every major problem with the last games are just addressed completely. I mean, this is a late Game Boy game. I think it was 93. I'm gonna Google that real quick. It was 91. Sorry. It was 91. But still, that's late. That's pretty darn late. So I guess by then they figured everything out. They said, okay, this stuff genuinely doesn't work. Let's fix it. This game was remade just like the second one. And that was, of course, that retained its Saga name. It was on the DS, Saga Warriors of Time and Space, Shadow of Light. You know how Japanese games have to have two subtitles, they can't just have one. I looked up gameplay and it works similar to the previous two games. Less this one. There's breakable weapons again. They brought back some of the dumb stuff from the other games in the remake. So I guess I don't like that. I prefer the Game Boy version over the remake. I mean, I didn't play it, but that doesn't sound fun to me. It didn't look fun either, to be honest. So yeah, the battle system is like completely overhauled for the better, for the infinitely better, in my opinion. You can jump now. They just added a jump button. You can jump over holes, and there's a lot of puzzles in this game. I love puzzles in RPGs where you break the pacing a little bit, get yourself a little rock moving puzzle. Some people think they're overplayed. I love moving some rocks. Let me tell you, I love sliding on ice. I love moving rocks. Give it to me in any game, I'm there. There's a ton of different types of armor, and they can all equip all kinds. You used to have to equip armor in like your weapon slot area, so armor would take up different attacks that you could no longer use, but that's no longer a problem. In the menu, it just says leather on a space, and it doesn't determine what piece of armor that is. And if you want to change that out, like you have diamond gloves, you have to figure out which one is the gloves because it doesn't tell you. It just says leather, 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 bronze. And you're like, in every other part of the game, there's a little symbol, like there's a glove symbol and there's a chest symbol, but not in the main menu where you equip the stuff. Now, I said I had an easy time with this game. I did use a guide. I mean, I was traumatized by the last two experiences, and I didn't want to happen again. The last game didn't really have guides that were worth following. This one had one good guide, so shouts out to the guy who made that like probably 20 years ago or something. But again, I didn't really need it. It was nice to know what bosses, what items I should use for each boss, but like even if I didn't know that, I could have figured it out and came back pretty easily to do it and fix it, which was not the case in the last game. You know how in the Final Fantasy games you get an airship and you walk around and it's kind of cool? In this game you get a spaceship. It genuinely outdoes the mainline Final Fantasy in a few areas that I'll get into. The spaceship is awesome. It's like, you know how these Saga games have this weird sci-fi element that shows up every now and then that changes things up to be weird. The spaceship is powered by human brains. Like you have to put a brain in it for it to work, and the brain is like alive, controlling the spaceship. You just tell the brain what to do or something. It's very weird, which I love. That's one of my favorite parts about this trilogy is just the weirdness. It's also a hub where you eventually get shops and resting places and stuff like that. So again, taking that probably from Final Fantasy 3, perfecting it, making it better, just like 4. What is this, a good game or something? If you're in the air in the spaceship and you encounter a wild battle or something, it'll automatically shoot it and do a ton of damage to it. Like, this is great. I have a spaceship. That's awesome. There's an auto battle system that's kind of interesting too. And yes, this was in the original version, an auto battle system on Game Boy. You can set each character to be auto or not, and it'll just do whatever. It'll do whatever it thinks it's good. Sometimes it's not good. It could use items, like consumable items, so that's not fun. I don't want them to do that, but most of the time, it's really nice. You keep all your guys on auto and they'll probably kill them. You'll probably do better on your own, but there's one thing that was very interesting about the auto battle system. I think it makes decisions not at the beginning of the turn when everybody's doing that and you set it all up and then you watch it happen. Because I've consistently found that the Autobots, my party members, when they were on auto and in the middle of a fight, like the turns were going, I attacked, enemy attacked, got a ton of damage on one guy. He was at max health, but he just got a ton of damage. And then my next character goes and heals him. I've never had a moment where one of my party members healed somebody who was at max health. I'm pretty sure the system detected that and said, okay, he's damaged, so I'm going to use cure. They make that decision at an illegal time. The auto battle system cheats and can heal you if you're a human, if you are me in this situation, I don't know who's going to get hit. I don't know who to heal, so I'm just probably going to attack. But the robot can make a decision after the attack happens before the end of the turn. I'm telling you, it's a conspiracy, but I'm 90% sure that's true. Yeah, man, this game was just like kind of fun. It does deal with time and space in the story. Like, it starts off, if you played Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, it's similar to that. You're in one place and you go to the future and you go to the past and you change things a little bit. I'm like, whoa, I love that mechanic. But it's only like in the first area and then it stops. So that was strange. I thought this whole game was about like time, but only that part. Weird. But again, I'm here for all the weird new zones that you go to and stuff. Not a lot of them compared to the last two. I think the story was better in the last two. This one gets a little complicated for a Game Boy game, and I didn't really follow it very well. There's not much character to your main cast because, you know, you're not free as much in this. You don't create your team. You just get the 4 guys that you start with, and they even have names by default. You could rename them, but they have names. So you're expecting a more character-based story here, but honestly, my nameless base level characters from the last game had more personality than these named guys. I don't really know what happened. There's one part in the end where you're on the mountain and your spaceship, spoiler alert for Final Fantasy Legend 3, your spaceship comes crashing down and blows up a place and frees you to climb up it some more, or otherwise you were like gonna die. And you're like, whoa, how did that happen? And a guy who was joining you on your party at the time is like, oh, yeah, I put your dad's brain in that spaceship. And you're like, why did you do, but what? He just sacrificed himself, exploding into the mountain. That's 2 games in a row where your dad explodes to save the day. Unfortunately, he doesn't come back in this one, but it was a worthy sacrifice because I love that spaceship, man. Another great change. Remember in the last game, you didn't have permadeath anymore. You came back at the end of a battle because Odin brought you back. But then you killed Odin and you lost that ability. And it was horrible. Well, in this game, you just come back. There's no explanation. You come back. After every battle, if somebody died, they're back at 1 HP. No Odin. No removal of a great power that you had. You just have it. So that was nice. It's not that hard to make JRPGs bearable, guys. That's all I'm saying. Like, this Game Boy game got it. I was dreading this experience, and it turned out to be one of the better ones I've reviewed on the show. Like, I'd recommend it. The only way to play this is on the collection of Saga on Switch. They got it right, man. They really did it. I'm proud of them. You know, the Saga franchise went on to be a not very popular. I don't really know because I haven't heard much about it. They make a game like every couple years or so, maybe. Apparently these remakes sold more than they thought. I mean, I can't imagine it sold that much. I imagine even less people actually beat all 3. So I'm going to show you a little thing. You get like a gold emblem on each of the games that you play and beat. And when you get all 3 of them, the background turns into gold. I looked all over the internet to see if anybody had logged this to say, hey, look, this happens when you beat the game. It's gold instead of black. It's golden because you are a hero. Wow. You know, this is probably the biggest achievement of the show so far. Completing all 3 of these old, broken Game Boy games. Except for the third one was good, but there it is, the golden screen of you did it. In case you're wondering if I have Joy-Con drift. Yes, this happens when the Joy-Cons are off the system. You have to keep them connected, even if you're not using them. So there's that. Horrendous Joy-Con drift I had to deal with all 3 of these games. I got a blue Switch Lite when that came out, and I haven't touched it just because I wanted to beat it on this. Like this. I feel like this is the definitive way, so you don't have the little Joy-Cons getting in your way. But that was horrible. I just had to like wait and mess around with this. I'm gonna destroy this Joy-Con, but I got a Switch Lite now. Whenever I get to the next I'm not going to touch it until I get to the next Final Fantasy that I want to play on it. So that's going to be a while. Because we are now deep into the Super Nintendo era. The Game Boy is done. That's 2 consoles down. We're really in the golden age now. Actually, you know, you might consider this one of the golden age games because it's better than it should be. It was a lot of fun. It got the freedom idea, the idea of customizing your team, better than Final Fantasy 3 did. Better than 2 did, for sure. It's interesting. It's just food for thought. No one remembers this game, you know? No one remembers Final Fantasy Legend 3, except for like the couple of kids who grew up with it. Anyway, throw it to the trash. The next game, back on the Super NES, and the Super NES is here to stay. Goodbye, Saga. You were very unique, but now it's time to go all in on the Final Fantasy. None of this stuff is going to weigh us down. Tune in, because next time we're going to go on a little quest. Oh,